Hello and welcome. My name's Michael David Bradshaw, mostly known as Dave. And I'm pleased and honored to be with you and glad that you all could come for our Telling Your Life Story introductory class. And I'm feeling like this is going to be a fun adventure for all of us because many people have had on their list to do of writing their memoir, their autobiography, and some people keep a journal. Any of you keep a regular journal already? One.
I keep an irregular journal.
Irregular journal, okay.
I write every day, spiritual writing, but I don't call it a journal. You know, it's
Right.
not
Sure.
necessarily.
Gratitude list.
Yeah. So that's you're ahead of the curve. Probably less than 1 in 100 or maybe even 1 in 1,000 take the time to write out their autobiography. And unless you're a famous person and some ghostwriter's going to come alongside you and interview you, you're probably, if it's going to happen, it's going to be up to you. It's your own opportunity. Oh, we're losing our music background. That's okay. Yeah, that's good.
That's going to amplify it.
Yeah,
Make it hard.
that's fine. So, the old saying, if it's to be, it's up to me. So I'm looking forward to this class. When I came and offered to volunteer here at Friendship Center, I said, what can I do? I mean, I'm a singer-songwriter, can I come? And she goes, oh, we got a lot of music here already. What we really need is somebody to do a class, and I noticed that you're a writer, and would you be willing to do a class on helping people write their memoirs? And I said, absolutely. Something I've been thinking about and planning a bit. In the last year, I had my own little sort of brush with eternity, which I can tell you more about later, but simply say that I'm very blessed to be sitting here today in front of you, breathing. And I had a double lung transplant in May of this year. And so that was quite a life-changing experience. I was flatlined on the operating table for almost 4 minutes. Wow. At 5 minutes, they say goodbye and hang something on your toe, I think. But anyway, wasn't my time. And that's much to my 4 daughters, 10 grandkids, and 3 great-grandkids is joy that I'm around still. So that prompted me, ahead of that, to actually sit down and write out my own epitaph or obituary, because I wanted to define my own terms of how I wanted to be remembered rather than leave that up to somebody who, a family member or friend that would try to struggle with it. So I got challenged by an article I read somewhere to sit down and in 100 words or less write out what you want to be remembered for and summarize your life in a paragraph or 2 or even a sentence, your life goal. And so I did that, and thankfully I didn't need to post it, or it didn't need to be used, so the story continues. But it was I think the beginning of my idea of how do we tell our big story, our big picture of our life in a way that we want it told. There are even some groups of people that are planning out their own funeral to invite friends to prior to their death, because they want to be there for it. They want to hear what everybody has to say and kind of be in charge of directing how it would go. And then whatever they do after they pass away doesn't really matter because they got to enjoy it ahead of time. And I thought, well, that's kind of a novel idea. And so to prepare for that, he put together essentially an outline of an autobiography of what he wanted to cover. And I reflected on that. This is after she said she wanted to do the class. So this class, will be kind of a learning as we go. I'm going to do it along with you all and write my own. So by the end of the class, my hope is that we would have somewhere in the neighborhood of an 80 to 100 page book that would be your life. As Dickens would say, the best of times, the worst of times at the same time. And isn't that what our lives are in many ways, is that we tend to remember the high points, whether they be high points of joy or points of suffering that brought us to a new level. And so back in 2020, I put together a first book that I had actually done. I published and ghostwritten about 8 books in my work life. As a writer, worked with an investment company and put out special reports on economic topics and books, things like Don't Bank on It, The Unsafe World of 21st Century Banking. And these are 300-page books that we put together partially with the idea not only to get them on Amazon, but hey, come on in, welcome.
Hello, is this the
You're
life
not
story
late.
one?
It is. Come on in, grab a binder, and right there on your right, and pull up the seat.
Okay, thank you. What do we do with this?
That is in case, actually that was my screwdriver that they provided. Anyway, so, I was saying I put together these books and reports, and I write radio and television commercials for celebrity spokespeople like Pat Boone. How many of you? Yes, he's still alive. He's 88, going to be 89 this year. And he just did a series of 4 or 6 new commercials for the firm that I work with last week. So he's one that doesn't actually believe in retirement. He says, you know what, Dave, I searched the good book from cover to cover, and I can't find the word nor the concept anywhere in the scripture. How is it that we even came up with the idea that at a magic age of 65, our life would essentially, as we know it, end, and we would then sit around and clip coupons and, play bingo and go to senior center? No, I'm just kidding. We're at a senior center. But the point is, retirement has evolved in many ways since it was first enacted back in, actually 33 under FDR, where the life expectancy was 66. And so at 65, they figured, well, the government can afford to support you for at least a year or so. Of course, now the life expectancy is into the 70s and 80s, and many times beyond that. They say probably 80 is the new 65. So things are just getting started for us folks that are 60 plus. And so in any case, I decided I had worked with them and been involved in writing for other people, and I thought, well, in 2020 I switched to working part-time, just basically on retainer with them. I have all this time. One of my hobbies is writing book reviews, and I write a lot of book reviews, probably have about 40 of them published, and I went through and I picked out 10 that I thought were keepers, so to speak, or ones that I wanted to assemble together, and I ended up putting them together into a book. It's a book of book reviews called Blissful Books and Ballads. And in addition to the book reviews, which are ranging from many different authors, all different authors, C.S. Lewis, on the 4 different types of love. So the topics are on life, death, love, spirituality, resilience, personal growth, and books that stimulated me. In many cases, I've given these books to my kids and grandkids along the road. The Return of the Prodigal Son by Henry Nouwen, a famous teacher. On the Brink of Everything by Parker J. Palmer, known as the Angry Quaker. Anyway, these are books that impacted me, so I put it together into a book review, and then beyond that, the books inspired me to write a song for each of the books, which I ended up putting out a companion album. And so that's where you get the Blissful Books and Ballads, is that I ended up writing and composing songs for each of the 10 books, and put the 2 out. And they're on a website that's free, as a free download. And I did that back in November of 2020, not knowing that a month later I was gonna get COVID, which would turn into pulmonary fibrosis, which basically gave me a life expectancy of 2 to 4 years. But I did it mainly for my kids and grandkids. I wasn't really hoping to sell a bunch of books or anything, but I wanted to put something together that I could give everyone for Christmas that year, and so this is what it was. So it's not that hard to put together a 100-page book. We're basically talking about a couple of pages on 50 or 60 different memoirs, and boom, you've got your starting point anyway. Now, obviously your lives aren't over, so you're gonna have more chapters in the future to add, but at least at the end, I hope at the end of the 8 weeks, we'll end up with something. Not just a plan to do it in the future, but actually something tangible. And there are several ways that you can do this. One would be to handwrite it in a lined paper. Another way would be to input it in the computer. Some people may want to skip handwriting it to just go straight into putting it in the computer because you want a digital version of it. The idea is, that we're doing this not only for ourselves, but mainly for our posterity, for our children, grandchildren, friends, maybe even an enemy, who knows. If you want to be able to make multiple copies, putting it in digitally is probably going to be ultimately the best way. But a lot of people, when they're writing, even me, when I'm writing out new things, I prefer writing them handwritten first, and then I can cross things out the next day and say, where did I come up with that? Let me fix that. And then put it in after you do that. So that's one way to do it. Another way would be with your smartphone. Does everybody here have a smartphone? No? A few holdouts in the 21st century, no cell phone. Okay, that's all right. But you can get a hand recorder if you'd rather speak it than to write it. Some people are better dictating, and there are even programs, believe it or not, that'll convert it into text from your recording. So that's another way to do it. Exhibit A of that is, if you use it for texting, of course, sometimes it gets the wrong word, which is embarrassing. You got to go back and correct things that you didn't mean to say. But and then a third way would be to set up a little video camera and sit down and record it in a video and put it together into what I was going to say a DVD, but today we're all about everything digital, so it would be an MP4 versus an MP3, which would be audio. But anyway, the point is, however you want to do it, you can do it. There's really no set way that's right or wrong. I understand there's another class that'll be done here that's going to focus on doing it audio and video. We're going to focus more on writing it out, simply because for many people, it's easiest to do it in that way. So in the binder, you'll see that you have we're going to ultimately set it up with 4 tabs that would represent 4 different stages of life: early childhood, our education, our adulthood, and then retirement. And so the idea being that we'll do it chronologically, although my notion is that it's going to be better probably for us to start with our more recent memories and work backward, in that for many of us it's easier to remember what happened this year than what happened 70, 75 years ago. And so, but through the course of the class, I'm providing everyone with a list of 155 questions. If you turn in your binder, you'll see that is on page, I don't know, they're not numbered, but it says Telling Your Life Story, 155 prompting questions. And so I put together roughly about 40 to 50 or so questions in each of the 4 stages of life. And the idea is for you to go through and, like I did, review them all, but maybe put a check mark by the ones that you want to start with, the ones that you think are the most appropriate for you to begin with. And, for example, on page 1, do you feel your name fits you? That was one that I checked. My name is David, actually Michael David, but I go by David, which means beloved. And, you know, all of your names have a meaning, and it may feel that, you know, you may feel that's a question you want to delve into, like, how did your parents come up with the name? Is there a story attached to your name, like after another relative? Does it have a special meaning? How do you feel? Did you change your name, etc.? So anyway, there are altogether, like I say, 155 of these questions. And what I did in preparation for this, and would suggest doing, is going through and maybe picking about 15 or so from each of the 4 sections of life to be able to have as a starting point. And as I said, I feel like starting with our retirement, which is section 4, and to kind of get the skids greased, so to speak, would be a good starting point. So a couple of the ones that I checked here, if you turn to the section 4 in the retirement questions, retirement plans. What are your plans and dreams for your retirement? If you've already started retirement, how do you feel about being retired? And how do you spend your time? Well, like I said, Pat Boone doesn't even believe in retirement. He says, I'm all about re-inspirement or rewirement. Come up with another name for it, because the word retirement actually means retreating, and a lot of people don't like that notion. I would rather be considered advancing than retreating in this final stage of life, so to speak. Another question, what do you want to be remembered for? And that's possibly the best first question to start with as your kind of master mission statement for the overall autobiography. What do you want to be remembered for? And writing out your own obituary, or what, a sentence or so, what you want to be remembered for, can help kind of pull the whole thing together and keep it on the spot of where you want to go with this, and keep it moving. Another one that I checked was number 109. Has your personality changed? Has your personality changed since you were young? I hope so, but maybe not. In what way has it changed, and are you happy or unhappy about the changes? So anyway, I'm just giving you a few examples of questions that I chose. The last few, what do you want more out of in life? What are you doing to reach that goal? Is one that I want to put down. What is your picture of an ideal life? Describe an average day in your ideal life. So anyway, these questions, again, you can come up with your own. These are just to help you get started. And I would suggest that in this first period of between now and we're going to pick this back up in January, I believe the second Monday in January, which I don't even know what that is, if anybody has a calendar. Whatever that is, we're looking at that being the next class.
And are we gonna meet monthly then?
We're gonna meet weekly.
We're gonna meet weekly,
But
except,
not between now and Christmas. We're gonna wait till after. And that'll give you a couple of weeks to actually get kind of a head start on it. Somebody's gonna look it up for me, and that way
Second
we.
Monday's
You said
January
the
9th.
second Monday?
Okay. Monday, and that would be the January 9th?
Mm-hmm. So
Jan-
we're gonna miss 2 weeks. We're gonna miss this 26th of December, the day after Christmas. Or are we gonna come on that day?
No, but
No.
we're gonna
Yeah.
skip until Monday, January 9th.
Okay, there we go.
And that would give you a chance to actually make some pretty good progress on your own in starting with your first assignment, which is, as it says in your book here, the first assignment is to come up with a mission statement, and that could be your own epitaph, how you want to be remembered as a sentence or a paragraph. And then step 2 would be to go through, at least start with the retirement section and check about 15 or so. Now, if you've been in retirement longer, you can pick more questions, or if you're just barely starting in it, you could pick fewer questions and pick more from the other sections. That's why there's a lot of flexibility here on which questions you choose. But if we can, between now and our next class, put together your mission statement and about 7 or 8 of the memoirs, and I would suggest writing out 1 to 2 pages in answer to the questions. You can go longer than that, you can go shorter than that. Obviously, some questions and some promptings are going to be longer than others, some are going to be shorter, so figuring an average. But the idea is that then we would have a good start to begin in January for the next 7 weeks and actually hopefully complete it by the end of February, the whole class.
Will we meet every Monday at the
Every
same
Monday
time?
at
11 a.m.
11 a.m. here at the Friendship Center. And I will be videotaping and posting, and if I get all of your emails, I can send you the link in case you miss a class, perchance, got family visiting, something like that. And the basic format of the class will be just a little bit of teaching time, me sharing a few principles and that kind of thing. Then about 15 minutes of actually writing in class so that we can pick one of the prompting questions and actually accomplish that in the class. And then maybe another 10 or 15 minutes for questions or you sharing some of your memoirs. I think the class would like to hear what the other members are writing about, and kind of always good to hear. And I think that's one of the things, as I mentioned in here, that the purpose of the class is twofold: to help others as well as to help yourself. And we're going to probably learn some things about ourselves in answering these questions that's going to be very helpful for our own understanding of our true self and our real self versus our false self, which hopefully most of us are kind of shedding that as we move into the second half of life. And but some people still cling on to it. The ego dies very slowly, painfully. One of my favorite books that I reviewed in here is entitled The Grace in Dying by Kathleen Dowling Singh. And she was a hospice nurse for 30 years bedside with thousands of people during their passing. So you can imagine the kind of insights and experience that she has, quite different than most of us who at most might be with a family member or a friend occasionally, maybe once or twice. But one of the things she said that stuck with me is that when you are in the nearing death experience, it's sort of a light enlightenment at gunpoint. And so, and she says there's no reason we have to wait until we're nearing our death experience to begin the process of enlightenment. We can begin it through spiritual practices, through meditation, through self-reflection, anywhere along the point in our life that we choose to. And what better time that in this season of life for us where we have more time on our hand to begin to reflect. And so the one thing that she also said that stuck with me is at the time I read the book, my mother was passing at age 92 of dementia. And she said, by the way, if you or a loved one is in the process of passing away right now, please put the book down and go be with them. And just listen, just be there for them, and reassure them that, and the overall arching theme of the whole book is that dying is safe. There's nothing to fear. And that's a message that a lot of people don't believe. A lot of people don't understand it because it's the unknown. What do we know about it? But as somebody who has sat holding hands with thousands of people, she said, what I found is it didn't really matter how spiritual they were in this life. When they get to the nearing death experience, it's very peaceful in most cases, and now with modern medicine, it's almost painless, and yet it is a glorious time of transformation, and there's really nothing to fear. As I think Mark Twain said, I had been dead billions of years before I was born, and it hasn't bothered me in the least. And I think that's the way. So if we look at this class as kind of a preparation in that we're writing out our autobiography to share with our friends and family, but part of the purpose of the class also is, I think, to offer some encouragement and accountability to one another. A lot of times I start on things and get distracted. Anybody else do that? You know, my great downfall is procrastination, and that is something I've dealt with my whole life and paid certain consequences as a result of it. So the idea is that with our classmates here and coming to an actual classroom to do it, we have this accountability that we want to be able, and also we want to be able to share with others some of the wonderful things that we're uncovering as we answer these questions. Some of the other things that would be helpful in doing this and can be incorporated in this are photo albums that you have, any memorabilia, old letters, pictures, obviously videotapes, things like that. Report cards to remind you when we get to the school age and that kind of thing, what your teacher said about you, how true was that, were they prophets and you didn't know it, Teachers can be that, right? Teacher. Okay, so we're giving you these resources, the 3-ring binder. It says 150 pages of notebook paper. Today all I can spare is 3, so maybe get your own paper. They have some more there if you want to take it, but had I known, I would have brought some more. Or a computer if you're going to put it into the computer. And a commitment, essentially, to invest 15, 20 minutes a day outside of class, picking 1 or maybe 2 questions. And if you do 1 a day in 7 days, you'd have 7 done in a week. So the idea here is in 7 or 8 weeks, we'll have about 50 of them. And that would be a good goal. Let's see. So I've already given you your first assignment. Create a theme, purpose statement, and then choose 12 to 15 questions from each section, and then start writing. It's all about just starting to do it. And if you have your own questions that you want to start with, maybe you want to start with what was the most important thing that happened to you in 2022? I know what mine is going to be. Near-death experience and the glory of having a new set of lungs given to me, and so that's my own story. But this isn't really about me. It's about you. It's about you writing about your life and doing it in a way that will be inspiring. Many young people today wish that they had something like this for their parents and grandparents that have passed. So at least we'll be among those that don't say, I wish I woulda, I coulda, shoulda, but we'll be among those that say, I did it, and I'm continuing to do it, and I'm excited about it. So with that, I think we've covered most of the things that we need to in this first one. You all have your questions and outline, and I don't know even what time it is.
It is 29 minutes since you started, so it's probably
About 11:30.
11:30.
11:34.
Okay, why don't we open it up for questions, and if there are any, and then I was going to say we could use the remaining 10 minutes because I think it's a 45-minute class. Or some of you staying for the luncheon that they have here?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we want to be on time. Yeah.
As far as the mission statement,
can you pin it down a little bit more?
Well, yeah, I mean, let me just read you what I put. Anyway, it's not there. It's in the, and I'll email you all, be sure somewhere on a sheet somewhere, make sure I get your,
Shall I start a list around? Oh.
yeah, why don't you do that in the last 10 minutes? Just with your name and email.
Okay.
I don't need to phone you unless, you know, you can, if you want to email me and say, can we talk on the phone? Sure. But here's what I wrote this year as my own obituary. And Michael David Bradshaw, 1953 to 2022, affectionately known as Idea Man, passed peacefully of natural causes. His passion was helping others discover they were created in love as a reflection of the image of God. In his professional work as a financial writer, he sought to help readers discern economic reality and grasp that true wealth transcends money. His book, reviews, and songs, expressed here, expressed his joy in promoting closer relationships, both human and divine. David is survived by his 4 loving daughters, 10 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. So that's a short synopsis of what I would like to be remembered for. Now, you could say, what do you want on your gravestone? Well, that's a little long for that, you know. But isn't it better for you to choose how you want to be remembered than to rely on somebody else? I think so. I think you know best what your life you want it to stand for. And there's still time to make midlife corrections of things that you know are unresolved. And but that would be one example. It might be as simple as just saying, Jane Smith. My life was involved, like Dickens said, the best of times, the worst in times at the same time. It might be just one sentence. You pick. You might have a favorite quote. You might have a favorite author. Somebody that helps you to reflect on who the real you is beyond just what people see on the outside.
As I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about an answer to that question, for me, what are your plans and dreams for retirement? It's to set an example for what you can do. And it goes back to that statement, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And I've always maintained that attitude. And going back to the very beginning, 100 years ago. But I think that would be where I would begin. It's to continue to show that you're responsible for you. And if you want things to be a certain way, then you need to take the steps to make it be. And I mean, I've been very encouraged with my family and friends that, are constantly reinforcing that. So I feel very excited about starting here on a very, very positive note.
Good. I think that's a perfect start. I think a lot of people in this stage of life feel like it's my turn to give back. And how can I best do that? And what was I created to do? Now there are no distractions, young children, other things, working full-time, etc., that are important parts and stages of life, but now we're at a stage where maybe we don't need to do that. And now we have this time available, and some people choose to travel, some people choose to garden, some people choose to volunteer, at a child care center, because their grandkids are across the country and they want to be around young children. They love hearing the sound of pitter-patters. So there's a lot of different ways to give back. Yeah, I'm sorry, you got a comment or question?
Well, what's throwing me off is, could you explain to me the logic of starting retirement? It seems to me, I would want to start with my first memories and just keep going through.
Yeah, well,
So
that's...
I'm not quite getting it.
Yeah, the notion here, and I didn't know exactly what age group we'd have, and I'm guessing this group is more, in the 70s and 80s. You know, I thought it would be easier to start with remembering what happened this year than remembering what happened 75, 80 years ago. Now, if you want to do it chronologically, that's okay. The idea here is you have all of the tools to start it and do it however works best for you.
Okay.
I went over it with Jenny, and she liked the idea of starting it with the most recent and working backwards. There's no hard and fast rule about how you have to do it.
Okay.
You can do it that way, and you may during the week have a thought that comes to you, and that's part of the idea of having the binder with the different sections. Something that happened to you in college. You might get together with an old college buddy and bring up a memory, and so you want to write up. You want to go to the section on school and college memories and write out that particular memoir about that, and then just stick it into the second tab here so that the whole thing ends up chronologically at the end. So it's quite random, and we decided to start with from the back forward, sort of strategically, thinking about the big picture. Many people here are in retirement, so that's where we thought would be a good starting point, but there's nobody that's going to enforce that's the way it has to be.
Let me have
Sure.
just a comment. You know, the first week, we're gonna write something, but it doesn't mean that we've written that forever. Now that's done, right? Right, so I mean, in the 7th week or the 6th week, we may decide to go back and revise what we wrote the first week. And I think what you were saying is what's that, you know, he was a good friend, right? He always made people happy.
Mhm.
He was of service to everyone. So what is it about you that you want to be, or that you are, you know, always, whatever that is, right? Is that, I think that's kind of what the idea of starting from the backwards forwards is.
Right, kind of getting the big picture. That's what, you know, prompting you to write your own obituary should do, is get you to kind of go up at 10,000 feet and look at your life and say, what is the big arc that I want to be known for? I mean, I came from a place of love. That's where I'm heading. That's my premise in this class. And the stuff in between involves a lot of bumps. We had our own plan and it didn't work out, but we know kind of, so that I think will help us to keep in focus as we do the little teeny pieces of it with the individual memoirs. So
I just wanted, my youngest grandson, I believe in reincarnation.
okay.
And my youngest grandson, when he was 3 years old, he came out and he just walked up to me and said, I'm just here to love. And every time you see him now, he's 12, he still hugs you very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes.
I hear we're using memoir and autobiography interchangeably, and I think they're actually different.
Okay. Yeah, they can be used interchangeably. Memoir being kind of just special memories from the word memory about a specific event in time. Some of these questions are broader than that, so they're designed to sort of bridge between memoir and autobiography. I think that's the best word that people are familiar with, that we're taking a compilation of our memories and assembling them chronologically for our autobiography. And so, but if you want to make a further distinction, go ahead. I mean, I think that the ultimate goal of the class is to come up with your life story and a sweeping overview of the high points, low points, what you want to be remembered for, and what you hope to be able your life to teach, and you know, maybe some goals that are still unfinished that you want to accomplish. So it's broader than just memoirs. You're right. So,
But that's a nice idea to think it's just memories, and by the way, those memories were part of the story,
Right.
and then you put the whole story together,
Mhm.
and it's made up of your memories.
Right.
Which is,
I guess for me, I'm not really concerned about, and this happened, and then this happened. I'm more in, like, essays, and more impressions, or,
Mhm.
like Tina Fey wrote Bossy Pants. It's more just like essays, or, I'm more attracted to that, but who knows, maybe after doing this, I'll
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, I mean, it'll flow together once you start writing, I think, in many ways. I'm looking forward, I'm gonna go home and, I mean, I thought maybe we could get started today, but I think we're about out of time. So, your first assignment is write up something about your overview and go through, pick out your questions that you wanna start with or come up with your own. These are just my best effort of curating from half a dozen different sources and some that I wrote myself. And then let's pick it back up on January 9th. And I look forward to hearing some of yours, and we'll maybe, who knows, have a fair amount of time for doing that in the next class. Yes?
I just wanna say, the other thing about a memory is that it has details, right? So somebody could write an essay about, I think this is very, very important, but you get the flavor of it with this memory of, this happened, blah, 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 and there was so that's kind of a good writer works on their details.
Mhm.
So writing just about one little moment in time gives you that opportunity, right?
Right, exactly.
Whereas, there were 15 other years where you didn't get any mention at all. But
Yeah.
that one day, you get perfect, as best as you can remember, the detail.
And if you think of it in terms of a script for a movie or a play, it's done in scenes, right? A little scene here, a little scene there, and then your mind fills in, oh, this is what it was like. This is what happened when we're not seeing it. And so that's, if you think of it in that way, you're writing little scenes from your life and putting it together into this motion picture of you, who knows? It may be that within our group here, there's stories that would have great public interest and may be published and become bestsellers.
No.
But that's not necessarily, I think a lot of people don't do it because they think, oh, my life's too ordinary. But, really, we're all ordinary people, living ordinary lives, going through the ups and downs, and eventually we're all, as ordinary people, gonna pass. It's just part of life, nothing wrong or scary about it. But let's put something together to share the wisdom that we've gained during these 70, 80 years with those around us. I almost feel an obligation to it, to my kids and grandkids, particularly great-grandkids, since they're at a distance away right now. And so with that, I'd say start writing. Write your life story.
Senior Friendship Center